So you're going to first want to create your magic ring or circle. I usually like using 3 fingers to do so because I find it is a bit easier. So I don't go too in depth in this video on how to do the magic ring, but be sure to check out my other one. I think it's 18 or 20 minutes, so it's pretty in depth on how to create your magic ring or circle. So be sure to check that out if you're having a hard time following along with this tutorial. So you're just going to go underneath the piece of yarn that's underneath your pinky, and you're going to pull it through the loop there, and then you can untangle the piece of yarn that's not attached to the ball, but it's really no point because it will just start getting or continue to get tangled a bit. So you're going to want to do your single crochets into the magic ring, and you're going to do 6. So you're going to go under both pieces of the magic ring, and you're just going to drag that piece of yarn underneath those 2 pieces. So it may look complicated, but just remember you're just bringing that piece of yarn that's on your finger, and you're simply dragging it under those 2 pieces that consist of the magic ring. And you're going to want to make 6 of these. So again, just bring that piece of yarn underneath those 2 strands or parts of the magic ring. Make sure to yarn over again and pull through. Because we're using a lot thicker yarn, just make sure to keep adjusting your magic ring, because you could wind up in a situation where it gets really, or you're not able to actually pull the magic ring closed. So just make sure you are tightening the magic ring as you go, as I do in this tutorial. So you can just count back from 6 if you're confused on where your first stitch is. And you can also use just another piece of yarn as a stitch marker. If you want, you just put that piece of yarn over top of the yarn that's wrapped around your finger. Or you could just use a regular stitch marker, but I just find I can move a lot faster with the stitch marker that is just yarn. So make sure you're going under the proper first stitch, and you're going to go underneath both parts of the stitch, so the entire stitch there, and you're just going to again continue doing your single crochets. Just make sure to, when you're doing your single crochets, is this round we are increasing, so that basically means you're doing 2 single crochets into the same stitch. So I just made one here, and I'm going back through the same stitch that I just made that stitch. Okay, so 2 single crochets into 1 stitch, and that's an increase. So we have 6 stitches, and by making 2 single crochets in each of the 6 stitches, we're going to get up to 12. So again, make sure you are making 2 single crochets into each stitch. So now what you're going to do is you're going to make your last round of increases, but instead of doing increases all the way, we're just making 1 single crochet and then an increase. So we're just repeating that pattern until we have 18 stitches at the end of the round. So again, we do 1 single crochet, and then we do 2 single crochets or an increase into the next stitch. I really encourage you to make sure you're counting how many stitches you have at the end, because it's very easy to accidentally put more single crochets into the same stitch, or to even skip a stitch, especially with the plush yarn. especially once we start working with white yarn, it gets a bit harder to see. So just make sure you are counting how many stitches you have at the end of every round, or just count as you work along. So we're gonna change colors, and when you change colors, you're going to go into your first stitch of the new round, and you're going to start doing a single crochet, but instead of yarning over, now what you're going to do, instead of doing your second yarn over, you're going to actually take your new color and pull it through both those loops. And now that you've put you have your new color in, you're going to basically tie a knot at the back there to secure it. You can also weave it in, but I personally just am fine with tying a knot at the back, so it's up to you. And then you can continue using the pink yarn and just continue doing the rounds. So when doing a decrease, it's pretty straightforward. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually do a single crochet, and then we're going to do a decrease. So a decrease is basically just going under the bottom loops of the next 2 stitches. So like an increase where we go into the same stitch to create 2 stitches, a decrease is we're going in the 2 stitches to just create 1 stitch. So just make sure, because this is an invisible decrease, you're just going under the bottom loops of the next 2 stitches, and like your single crochet, you're just going to yarn over and pull through both those loops to make 1 stitch. Again, I have a lot of other videos about the invisible decrease, so be sure to watch those if you're confused. I'll link them above, because I do go through this a bit faster. So when you're sewing in the wings, what you want to do is you just want to go under one of the stitches or part of a stitch of the bee first, and just make your way going into the bee and then coming through the wing, going into the bee, coming through the wing. I sped this part up a bit, but if you want to see a more in-depth tutorial on how to actually sew in the wing, just comment down below and I'll definitely will do that. Okay, so you're also going to need felt, and what I just did is I took some black felt and white felt and a glue gun and just cut out 3 circles and glued them on to each other and then glued them onto the bee. If you want, you can also insert eyes. Just make sure you do that obviously before you stuff it and close the bee, but I kind of like it this way. So I didn't show me doing the felt eyes, but if you want to see that again in another tutorial, just comment below. But again, it's pretty simple. Just cut out 3 circles and do that 3 times, and by using felt, just glue it down to the bee afterwards.